Hello, everybody. All right. Well, we're on Thursday, the last night of the week for the Niche Newscast. So hopefully everybody will tune in. As always, if you guys can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything grabs your attention tonight, feel free to comment or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions the best of my ability. So while we're waiting for more people to show up, I'm going to go off camera here for a moment to um, take care of some stuff, and then when I come back, we'll go ahead and start get start going over on tap for tonight. So, anyways. First, my bad. All right, so here's what's on tap for. Let me just do one more quick little thing here, and then we will get going here. And I thank you for the like and the share. Um, all right, so with that being said, talk about what's on tap for tonight. So I've got a couple articles I'm going to go over from Bleeding Fool, including Avi talking about how apparently the left wing bloggers, as it were. Oh, poo. Hold on, I gotta. Think I accidentally. Think I accidentally. Um, Sometimes don't you just hate it when your computer can be at times too sensitive? Sometimes I have to make sure that everything working right. Anyways, as I was about to say, we got a couple articles, including Avi Green's article on left wing blog. Sure do love Jason Aaron's defamation of the Punisher. There's been a story that's been going on for the last week or so. I know a number of people, including Yellow Flash, have talked a little bit about this. How now in order just to deal with the Punisher, just get rid of him altogether, they're killing him off apparently. So, and also Chris Braley was talking about how Iron Age distribution is going to revolutionize the Iron Comics distribution with direct to retail model. So, hey Jr. How you doing, man? Um, Hail Lord Xenu and Hail Princess Xena, our only true saviors. All right. Okay. So, anyways, um, also tonight, of course, We'll have the wrestling wrap up. Some news coming out of WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling. Of course, tonight's episode of Impact, as well as some news in regards to a former WCW star wrestler, one of their more well-known enhancement talents. We'll talk about him a little bit, the gambler, Jeff Gann. And also, of course, at the very end, we'll have this day in each history segment. So with all that said and done, why don't we go ahead and let's get into the articles then. Let me just pull that up. And let me see. I think, JR, did you just... Let's see. I like this channel. You read my exaltation of Xenu and Lena and make it part of the show opening. Well, hey, right now, I basically, right now, when there's only like 2 or 3 people watching, I can take the time to read through the comments. I want you guys to feel free to comment and ask questions. Of course, a lot of it more about what we're talking about, what I'm going over. But I don't mind saying hi to you guys either, and I'll read them off. So I mean, as I always say, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and if I can't answer the question, I'll do the best I can to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Now, with all that being said, of course, let's go ahead and get into the first article here. All right, so left-wing blogs sure do love Jason Aaron's defamation of the Punisher. Article by Avi Green published earlier today. So this is, I guess, a tweet that he's focusing on here from a guy named Brandon, currently supporting the WGA. As I understand it, the WGA is the Writers Guild of America, meaning, of course, the writer's strike is what he's probably referring to. So, Jason Aaron doing the impossible and making a Punisher book I actually really loved. And all he had to do was upend Frank Castle's entire status quo, make the story about how everything he does and everything he purports to be is detestable. Okay. Marvel Comics continues to emphasize the modern far-left narrative that Frank Castle is nothing more than a quote-unquote murderer, not pausing for even a second to consider how past writers portrayed him, or how he was first introduced as an anti-crime vigilante who went after mainly lethal mobsters and such after a syndicate murdered his own family in New York City's Central Park during a picnic outing. Now, the far-left Polygon is paying lip service to current SJW writer Jason Aaron's newest take on the Punisher, which sees his late wife resurrected only as an excuse for rejecting Frank after all he did to avenge innocent lives like hers and their children, and prevent more innocents from being murdered by violent criminals again. Of course, let us also not forget the fact that a lot of these SJWs have twisted thinking to begin with and have more sympathy for criminals than for everyday Americans who are just trying to live their lives and just go about their business. Let's not forget how SJWs are a cancer on society who should probably all be straitjacketed and locked in an insane asylum somewhere. because they are that totally nut. They are the catalyst for what Isaiah had prophesied in Isaiah. I think it was chapter 6, verse 9, where Isaiah was saying, we at some point we will live in a world where wrong will be called right and right will be called wrong. SJWs are the very embodiment of that prophecy. So, anyways, getting back, and this is going back to the article, this part going back to the article that Avi is referencing here. Punisher from writer Jason Aaron and artist Jesus Saiz and Paul Azaceta is not explicitly a book that tries to redeem a character co-opted by hate, but it's not a book that's unaware of the context in which it exists. Of course, here we go with the whole here we go how, again, going with the Frank Castle is a character of hate, narrative again. And that's never felt. And in its conclusion, in which, after becoming an unstoppable god of murder and war, Frank Castle, resurrected wife, undoes his godlike powers, divorces him, and takes all of his money. Yeah, again, these SJWs need to have their lives, orchestrated in the way that they would orchestrate characters like Frank Castle. The log line on Punisher was that Frank Castle was the destined avatar of the Beast, the god of murder worshipped by the Hand Ninjas from Daredevil comics. And it largely stuck to that gonzo mandate, with Saiz delivering an epic visuals to match. Frank developed a whole suite of superpowers and used them to strike down armies and murder Ares himself. The book was anything but about taking out low-level criminals and earthly mobsters. Yeah, Jason Aaron was trying to paint Punisher as a villain, basically, because that's the way they see him. Azaceta, on the other hand, delivered the flashback to the story, redefining Frank's childhood in the key of, quote, evil god destined serial killer, unquote, and telling the story of Frank's wife, Maria Castle, in such a way as to make it clear that if there was ever anything good in Frank, it was from his family, who grew to hate and fear him for loving war more than them. Which I think is just totally in the total antithesis of what Frank Castle was. You have to remember too, when Frank Castle was created, I believe he was created back in the 60s, maybe the early 70s, in which it was a time he was, a character coming out of the Vietnam War. So is this Punisher series gonna stop people from worshiping the character's murders as righteous behavior? No. Well, what you call murders, a lot of people might call righteous vengeance, including the characters who created him in the first place and the guys who wrote him in the first place. Oh, there it is. All right. All right. So, there ain't no book anybody can write or draw that's gonna do that. Was it a fascinating read with a conclusion that quietly emasculates Frank in all the ways that those same people consider most important? Yes. Now here's back to Avi. Here's we're hearing from Avi again here. Here, the writer is justifying the notion of turning Frank into a quote unquote beta male who can't possibly be heroic in any way, shape, or form, and completely ignores the violent crimes committed by many of the villains he faced off with in the past. Because again, SJWs hero worship villains and vilify heroes. Another example of how they are the epitome of Isaiah's prophecy in Isaiah chapter 6, verse 9, in which in which good is called evil and evil is called good. So, this is one of the most truly insulting tales I've ever heard of, with the worst part being that Punisher co-creator Jerry Conway is thoroughly unlikely in all his modern wokeness to lament the destruction of a character he and Ross Andru worked to create in the mid 70s. So he was created in the mid 70s. But one of the things I would like to, because I know Mike Barron also worked on the Punisher series quite a bit. I'd like to get his. I wouldn't mind getting his take on all this garbage going on right now. Wouldn't mind hearing from him on what he'd have to say about all this. Related, why Marvel is ashamed of the Punisher and fans still embrace him. Is Avi still speaking? Obviously, I think the worst part is that Bill Mantlo may have sowed the seeds exploited by today's PC advocates around 1983, since he may have told at the time he disliked the Punisher and wrote a story in Spectacular Spider-Man where Frank gunned down the wrong kind of people. Well, gee, what makes Mantlo think that's going to improve anything by shoehorning Frank into scripts where he'd be made to look bad? Mantlo's writing, based on that, was very hit or miss, and it's a shame he had to let his personal disagreements get the better of him at the time. If the early 80s story were decanonized, it'd be for the best. There's no need to allow a bad storyline to remain nailed in the continuity till the end of time. Here's a bit more about the premise of this 12-part story from Bam Smack Pow, who are just as embarrassingly bad in their take on the Aaron Tale. So this is from the Bam Smack Pow article we're going to read here. So during this 12-issue run, Frank Castle joined the Hand in supernatural powers, and his wife Maria was resurrected. All of this concluded after Maria attempted to kill him. She hated how he used their family's death to fuel his war. Frank didn't understand until she took half of his worth and started a charity in their children's names. She told him that's the right way to honor their son and daughter. After that, Frank used the last of his powers to disappear. He's later seen in Weird World keeping kids safe. 12 issues, and Jason Aaron created something different. He created a series about a nearly 50-year-old man and changed him from top to bottom. This is something that should be praised. No, it shouldn't. You put your own bleeding ideological Ben into it. So they're okay. So now back to Avi here. So they're also, in pure knee-jerk fashion, justifying the abuse of a character whose story should have been retired long ago. And as some may realize, it's unlikely the abuse will stop with this discuss, even if Frank's in the afterlife. Now the article gets worse. So this is going back to the article that Avi's referring to. There have been mixed reviews on the Punisher run. Some people are saying it took away what made the Punisher special. But however you feel about that, characters are going to change. It's been evident over the last 5 years, classic romances no longer exist. Teams are disbanding and heroes are becoming villains, and vice versa. That's not a bad thing. Keeping things the same is how people get bored. This is why Jason Aaron's bold move with the Punisher will help revitalize the character. Jason Aaron needs to be locked in an asylum, straitjacketed, so he can pound his head into the rubber room wall for the rest of his life. You know, so. Yeah, a lot of people, because again, you know, the fact that he went after mobsters. All the SJWs care about is that he used guns. You know. It started with Punisher's skull logo being changed. There was speculation as to why this was happening. A lot of it was down to the logo becoming synonymous with violence. Well, that doesn't make that a bad thing, though. I mean, it made kind of perfect sense considering a skull is the cranial remains of a dead man. You know, right? Then there's giving him powers. People always wanted to know what it would look like if Frank Castle didn't need guns. Now we know he could kill a god and take on the Avengers. Finally, well, okay, Japan kind of did that concept, not necessarily with Frank Castle specifically, but the idea of giving a human being godlike abilities, particularly in terms of being able to put people to death. You know, it's a manga and anime series called Death Note. You guys should check it out. Finally, if Frank Castle has given up being a killer, this writer applauds that decision. Frank Castle's greatest attribute isn't killing, and he isn't defined by his guns. But that's not really what Frank. Okay, much like with Batman, now, granted, there's a lot of similarities between Frank Castle and Batman, but there are a lot of differences too. Frank Castle uses guns, Batman doesn't. Okay, well, but in the early days of Batman, he would use a gun, until they hash that out more later. But at the core of Frank's character is the need to keep people safe. The only way he knows how, that's through his military training. That is using his guns to kill the bad guys. All right. If he's no longer fueled by war and killing, that gives him a new outlook on life and how he decides to truly honor his family. That means new stories, friends, and opportunities. In that case, is Wolverine defined by his blades? This is Avi speaking again. As I may have noted at least a few other times, notice how nobody seems to have anything negative say about an X-Men mainstay who occasionally killed criminals as well, whether rightly or wrongly, and in sharp contrast to Punisher, nobody gives a D about Wolverine and what's defined him as a character. classic hypocrisy right there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because one, you know, Wolverine. Well, the thing is, the hypocrisy is because one, Wolverine doesn't use guns; he uses the blades. Okay, guns are somehow more. Well, in some ways they literally are because they're a ranged weapon. Where for Wolverine to use his claws, he has to be in close proximity to people. But still, in some regards, Wolverine's actually more bestial and savage than Frank Castle was. And he's actually driven more by pure rage as opposed to um, Punisher here. And while the writer who penned this puff piece may not think it's a bad thing that classic romance is being canned and heroes and villains switch places, it most certainly is troubling when it's all done for the desperate sake of PC wokeness. Something he clearly doesn't want to acknowledge is the problem. What's disturbing is that today's largely leftist writers not only don't want to create art that's inspiring, but these hack op-ed writers don't want to pen articles to do either. So they wind up justifying some of the worst possible directions taken with classic creations and won't complain if it's not improving a dismal situation. Nor will they argue in favor of boycotting Marvel or DC for all the desecration they've heaped upon the stable of characters for the sake of woke pandering. Related, Marvel writer Jason Aaron trolls fans he disagrees with again. Hey, Rick, let's see. Like a couple of. Yes, if only all men could be totally changed. Hey, Rick. Rick, I'll be sending you the StreamYard link tomorrow for tomorrow's show. Probably sometime in the morning. Thank you guys again for all the likes and shares you guys have been giving me. That helps. See if we can get some more friendly people in here. And as always, if anything in the articles here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Right now, we're going over Avi Green's article here about left-wing blogs, basically praising Jason Aaron's work on The Punisher. So, anyways, there's no telling if this is seemingly the last Punisher story that'll ever be published, but if it is, it's a terrible one indeed. Yet the columnist refused to admit it. Now, in some of the videos I've seen recently from Yellow Flash, he's talked about the fact this might be just a way of shelving the Punisher for a while. Showing away this controversial character in quotes there, and then maybe in a year or two they bring him back when they're desperate, as their sales continue to go down. The comic sales for this garbage keeps going down, and so they'll try to bring him back, and maybe they'll placate to the original fans and bring him back the way he was, rather than bring back this garbage. But in all their determination to be in lockstep with other PC advocates, emphasizing the notion that Punisher's very creation was wrong to begin with. Truly, however, the only real ending stories for the Punisher were in the mid-90s. And indeed, it should have stopped there. All this makes clear one of the greatest weaknesses with serial fiction as practiced in the USA. They simply don't know when to quit. And it's led to only so much PC abuse of classic creations ever since. when Marvel DC does finally fold, it'll be a blessing. And remember, folks, as many of you know, we can always look back to when Marvel and DC were great. Long before this PC garbage and this, you know, um, SJW garbage that we've been getting the last, couple years here. So, anyways, now moving on to this next article here. Chris Braley. See if you guys have anything more to say. No, nothing new to say as of yet. Um, Anyways, as always, guys, if you guys can help, if you haven't already, if like and share the stream, help see if we can get some more friendly people in here. That'd be appreciated. Also, um, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, Iron Age distribution to revolutionize indie comic distribution with direct-to-retail model. Article by Chris Braley, published earlier today. So let's go ahead and go over this one. Iron Age Distribution LLC, a subsidiary of Fund My Comic LLC. So it's basically the same company that obviously Chris Braley's a part of. Luke Stone, the guy who created it. R.J. Carter, Mike Barron, a number of people. Is thrilled to announce its grand entry into the dynamic world of indie comic distribution. Spearheaded by partners Luke Stone and Phil Avelli, Iron Age Distribution aims to transform the way independent comic creators connect with retailers and bring their captivating stories to the hands of eager fans worldwide. As the comic book industry continues to evolve, Iron Age Distribution recognized the need for a fresh approach that empowers independent creators and amplifies their reach. By offering a direct-to-retail distribution model, the company is set to revolutionize the indie comic landscape, providing a streamlined platform for creators to showcase their work and retailers to access a wide variety of unique content. Iron Age Distribution's primary focus is to facilitate seamless distribution channels that enable retailers to access indie comics at an unprecedented retail discount. Through strategic partnerships with print-on-demand printers, the company will ensure the availability of high-quality retail versions of numerous crowdfunded books that have garnered immense support from fans. Quote, we are delighted to announce the launch of Iron Age Distribution LLC, unquote, said Luke Stone, co-founder and partner of Iron Age Distribution. Quote, our mission is to bridge the gap between independent comic creators and retailers, ensuring a hassle-free and cost-effective distribution process with our direct-to-retail model. We aim to empower creators by providing them with broader exposure and retailers with access to an extensive range of captivating indie comics, unquote. Iron Age Distribution is currently in the process of developing an opt-in program which will offer detailed information on how independent comic creators can join their distribution network. The exciting initiative promises to unlock new opportunities for creators to expand their audience and enhance their success in the fiercely competitive comic book market. Phil Avelli, co-founder and partner of Iron Age Distribution, stated, quote, "We are passionate about supporting the indie comic community, and connecting fans with extraordinary stories that might have otherwise gone unnoticed. By collaborating with print-on-demand printers, we can ensure that fans have access to beautifully printed retail versions of their favorite crowdfunded comics." More information about Iron Age Distribution's opt-in program will be revealed in the coming weeks. Comic creators, retailers, and enthusiasts are encouraged to stay tuned for updates to the company's website, social media channels, and email newsletters. Okay, so there we go with that. As I said, we covered the two articles there. Um, so let's see, we're at what? 36 minutes into this, okay? So it's probably a good time to move on to the wrestling wrap up. And we do have some news coming out, of course. So, we have WWE news, AEW news, believe it or not, some WCW news too, um, and Impact Wrestling news. So, with that, first off, some WWE news. So, Braun Strowman has been recently been he's in the process of having neck surgery right now to deal with some medical issues. He reported today that he's got 15% paralysis of his left leg, so that doesn't sound good. It might be a while before Braun Strowman's back, depending upon how his medical issues come through. In other WWE news too, um, according to Nick Khan, there is somewhat of a financial reason why there are some of the main roster stars are going back down to NXT. That's in a hope that they can secure a new, obviously a renewal of the deal, for NXT programming. Um, Recently, some of the things NXT has done to try to include having Baron Corbin and Mustafa Ali come back. Also, there's another practical reason, giving some of the talent on NXT a chance to work with guys who've had some experience working on the main roster as well. And then, of course, also was part of the reason why Braun Breaker recently challenged um, Seth Rollins to a world title shot. So with that, we'll move on now to AEW, as last night's Dynamite had a number of things going on, including, of course, Adam Cole coming out to confront MJF. Some people say MJF got the better of the exchange, but I watched it myself, on replay, and found that Adam Cole held his own there against MJF. MJF just coming off as a spoiled rich punk that everybody probably wants to give a good slap to the face to. I definitely think that Tony Schiavone wants to give a good slap to the face. Slap upside the head to knock some sense into the boy, but but I digress. And yes, I called MJF Mackerel Jacob Freeman a boy. Okay, so anyways, going on to the matches from last night's Dynamite, of course, Orange Cassidy retained the international title um, against Swerve. Again, just struggling through some of the his hand injuries, his back injuries. You know, Orange Cassidy has proven to be a fighting champion here, and he retained the title over Swerve Strickland. The Blackpool Combat Club of the team of Claudio Castagnoli, John Moxley, and Wheeler Yuta just showed how vicious they are as they defeated the team known as Chaos of Rocky Romero and the team of best friends Trent Beretta and Chuck Taylor. Of course, Chaos is a group associated with Kazuchika Okada, while Blackpool Combat Club, of course, is a group affiliated with Bryan Danielson. As I reported last night, it was confirmed that Danielson versus Okada will be happening at Forbidden Door on June 25th here. The team of Jungle Hook of Hook and Jungle Boy Jack Perry defeated the team of Dralistico and Preston Vance of La Facción Ingobernable in a Texas Tornado match, and what turned out to be a very vicious match. With Jungle Boy getting the submission victory on Dralistico with the snare trap STF variation, while Hook was choking out LFI's manager Jose, the assistant. In about a minute and a half, Konosuke Takeshita defeated Damon Ace, and afterwards, he and Don Callis is pointing out that it was for them their intent to cut the Elite out of AEW, seeing them as a cancer. Chris Statlander had a very successful title defense against NJAS of the Jericho Appreciation Society. As it would seem, the Jericho Appreciation Society is being cooled off a bit here, as of course Sammy Guevara coming off of his, the Fatal 4-Way, in which he was one of three guys who lost to MJF in that match. Of course, I don't know if this means that Sammy Guevara will be taking time off. As previously mentioned a couple weeks ago, Sammy and Ty Mello are expecting their first child. That's why Ty Mello's been off. This is the first time I've seen Matt Menard on TV in a while. Essentially, since shortly after they ended up canceling the YouTube shows of Dark and Dark Evolution. And it looks like they're setting up a possible match at some point down the line between Statlander and Valkyrie. As Valkyrie, they've been dropping hints that they may make her heel, showing how bitter she is that she wasn't able to win the TBS title from Jade Cargill. It took Statlander to come in, and now Valkyrie may be going after Statlander soon. And then Jay White, and what some people might argue is a conclusion to this feud between Bullet Club Gold and Ricky Starks. Jay White defeated Ricky Starks with help from the Guns. Austin and Colton Gunn came in and interfered at the end of the match after the ref had been knocked out, as Ricky Starks was about to hit the Rochambeau on Jay White. So, and speaking, of course, of Bullet Club Gold, one of the other big announcements came out last night on Dynamite was, now a week from this Saturday, of course, is the debut of AEW's latest show, Collision, which will be on Saturday nights, I believe on TBS, from 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central Pacific, I guess. And he announced the main event for that show. The main event for Collision will see Ring of Honor World Television Champion Samoa Joe teaming up with Bullet Club Gold members of Juice Robinson and Jay White to take on AEW World Tag Team Champions FTR and CM Punk, and the show is taking place in the United States. Now, it's also been said that some of the ticket sales for the shows after the 17th of Collision, those have not been coming through as well as the first one. The United Center, I believe, is sold out, but the ticket sales for the other Collision shows in the week to come seem to be coming up quite short, which has AEW worrying about the possibility of having a TV show where it's like they're going to have an empty arena, basically. So that's pretty much all for the AEW news. Now, one of the other things I should probably report on here real quick. Like I said, we do actually have some WCW news tonight, as former WCW enhancement talent Jeff Gann, known by his ring name The Gambler, passed away. So for those of you who watched WCW in the 90s, you might remember enhancement wrestler who'd show up on a number of their programs, including Saturday Night and Pro, known as The Gambler, real name Jeff Gann. Well, as apparently tweeted out by former women's wrestling legend Susan Green, former NWA World Women's Champion Susan Green, Jeff Gann, the Gambler, passed away today. Details are still coming out, but if you remember, if you watched WCW in the 90s, the early 90s, I think he was there, basically he was there from 90 to 94 or 5, left WCW in 95 to go wrestle in USWA, and came back in 96 and spent the rest of his career in WCW. It's primarily enhancement talent. If you remember seeing him on Saturday Night and on Pro, he passed away. I don't have any additional information other than that. Sure, more will come out, and as more comes out, of course, I will give you guys more of that information. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and have a quick moment of silence for the Gambler, Jeff Gann. Then we'll move on with some more wrestling news before heading into this day in each history. Alrighty then. So with that, now the last piece of the wrestling wrap up here. So we do have some Impact Wrestling, of course. Tomorrow night, Impact Wrestling will be having Against All Odds. So the card for tonight's Impact Wrestling show, the last one before the Against All Odds pay-per-view, includes Heath taking on Champagne Singh with Shera in his corner. In a non-title match, X Division champion Trey Miguel takes on Bhupinder Gujjar. The Coven will be defending the Impact Knockouts tag team titles against the Death Dolls of Courtney Rush and Jessica. Chris Bay takes on Chris Bay of ABC, taking on the one half of the Impact World Tag Team titles, takes on one half of the Good Hands, Jason Hotch, who will have Brian Myers and John Schuyler in his corner. In another non-title match, Digital Media Champion Joe Hendry will be taking on Sheldon Jean, who will have Kenny King in his corner. And then in a setup heading into a number one contenders match, and I'll go into that a little bit real quick. Jonathan Gresham teams with Nick Aldis to take on the team of Moose and Rich Swann. Now they're involved in a match. So now we'll go just to talk a little bit about what's going to happen at tomorrow night's. Go over real quickly here what's going to happen tomorrow night's Against All Odds pay-per-view here. So on the main show tomorrow night, which will be on pay-per-view, the main event will have Steve Macklin defending the Impact World title against Alex Shelley. In an 8-4-1 match to determine the next number one Steve Macklin's next challenger, the new number one contender after Macklin defends the title against Shelley. You'll have on one side Bully Ray, Heath, Jonathan Gresham, and Nick Aldis. On the other side, you will have Mike Bailey, Moose, PCO, and Rich Swann. Now, why, you might ask, well, why has this match got a mix of faces and heels? Well, because as I understand it, as I heard, the 8-4-1 match goes a little something like this. You start out with an 8-man tag. Then the winner of that 8-man tag all face each other in a fatal 4-way. The winner that comes out of that fatal 4-way will be the number one contender. Hence the 8-4-1 designation there. You start out with two teams of 4, 8-man tag. The winner of the 8-man tag all face each other in a fatal 4-way. The winner of that match becomes the number one contender. Trey Miguel will be in a rematch from Under Siege. Trey Miguel defends the X Division title once again against Chris Sabin. Now this is going to be a rarity. Women's dog collar match. Killer Kelly takes on Masha Slamovich in a dog collar match, a women's dog collar match. Also for the Impact World Tag Team titles, ABC of Ace Austin and Chris Bay will be taking on the Good Hands with Brian Myers in their corner. Diono Purrazzo and Trinity will be teaming together, take on the challenge Giselle Shaw and Savannah Evans. Of course, you have to wonder what's going on here because, of course, Diono Purrazzo has also accepted, from last week's Impact, Diono Purrazzo accepted the challenge of Trinity for Slammiversary to defend the Impact Knockouts champion. Joe Hendry will be defending the digital media title against Dirty Dango. Frankie Kazarian, fed up with Eddie Edwards' lack of respect for the locker room in Impact, will be taking on Eddie Edwards, and Eddie Edwards will have his wife Alicia in his corner. And in another bitter rivalry match in a 6-man tag team Ohio street fight, the team of Sami Callihan, Jake Christ, and Madman Fulton, known collectively as part of the faction OVE or Ohio versus Everyone, take on the design of Angels, Diener, and Code. So that's all happening tomorrow. So there we go with the wrestling wrap-up. All caught up there. So now we will go ahead and now it's time to, today being Thursday, June the 8th, 2023, let's take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. History! All right. So with that, first off, we're going to head back to 1993, 30 years ago today. As on this date, 30 years ago today, Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, number 380, went on sale on this date back in 1993, 30 years ago today. It sold for $1.25, 32 pages. The story Soldiers of Hope, written by David Michelin, penciled by Mark Bagley, Randy Emberlin doing the inking, lettering done by Rick Parker, Bob Sharon doing the coloring. This date, 30 years ago today, Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, number 380, went on sale on this date in on this date back in 1993. Now moving ahead to 1998, on this day in 1998, first off, in what I believe was the Go Home Nitro before the Great American Bash this year, on this particular day, WCW held its Monday Nitro event from from the Palace of Auburn Hills in Auburn Hills, Michigan. The main event of the night saw Goldberg retain the United States heavyweight title over Chavo Guerrero Jr. a minute 21. Also saw Dean Malenko retain the Cruiserweight title over Disco Inferno. Fit Finlay retained the television title over Norman Smiley. In their best of 7 series to determine the number 1 contendership, Booker T defeated Chris Benoit in match 6. And of course, the show started off with Yuji Nagata defeating Jerry Flynn in the very first match of the evening. On this date, back in 1998, WCW held its Monday Nitro in the Palace of Auburn Hills in Auburn Hills, Michigan. Now moving on to the next piece of niche history here. Also on this date in 1998, 25 years ago today, back in 1998, the animated science fiction series Invasion America debuted as part of the primetime lineup for the WB on this date in 1998. It was produced by DreamWorks Television Animation. So on this date back in 25 years ago today, as 1998 is just so nice that we're going to hit it twice. Invasion America premiered on the WB in prime time. So, and finally, on this next piece, I already kind of mentioned this earlier in the week only because I screwed up. I messed up. But on this date, on June 8th, contrary to what I said earlier in the week, the second season of Kingdom premiered on Japanese television on this date 10 years ago today from Puro. The second season of Puro's Kingdom anime premiered on this date 10 years ago today in 2013. Yeah, I got a little too excited when I saw that earlier and I reported the wrong date on there. But anyways, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the content. Tomorrow night, of course, I'll have Rick Piper on with me as we will be looking over Best Comics Volume 1, Issue 2 from Standard Comics. Hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.